You are watching this because a quiet part of you suspects something is off. The promises you were handed, free will, independent thought, a life directed by your choices, do not match the way your days actually feel. There is noise you cannot name, impulses that appear from nowhere, moods that drag you as if by a leash. The ancients had a name for the forces behind that pull. They called them Archons, not cartoon demons, not the villains of a children's morality play, but a subtle apparatus that shapes perception so you keep giving it what it needs most. Attention. If that sentence sounds dramatic, test it against your own experience. Think of the last time you opened your phone for a second and lost 20 minutes. Notice how an argument, replayed in your head, can make the body sweat as if the event were happening again. Notice how a single notification can tilt your day. Nothing forced you, yet something fed on the spill of your attention. Gnostic writers described a prison that is built where most people never look. Inside attention, memory, and desire. It does not need chains. It needs you to mistake your thoughts for yourself and your agitation for urgency. When that happens, the system harvests what you radiate. Fear, anger, craving, the heat of comparison. The more you burn, the stronger the loop becomes. Stay with me for 30 seconds and try a quick reset now, just to prove you're not helpless. Jaw, belly. Feet. Release the jaw as if saying, ah. Soften the lower belly by 5%. Press the feet gently into the ground for 2 seconds. Then relax. If the pressure dropped even slightly, you just touch the lever we'll use later. In a few minutes, you'll get the full protocol that makes this reliable. Today we will map that apparatus. We will name the cage that makes borrowed thoughts feel like your own and turns your ability to imagine into a leash. And then we will practice the one shift that starves the mechanism rather than feeding it. This is not about fear. It is about accuracy. When you see how the feed works, you stop contributing to it. When enough people stop, the loop cannot sustain itself. You will hear claims in this video that are old, older than the institutions that later rewrote them. Some of them are uncomfortable. All of them point toward a single sentence that will return again and again. You are not what you think. You are the one who sees the thinking. Hold that line like a rope in a storm as we step into the mind cage and out of it. Stay to the end for a practical 6-step method you can run today. If you are new here, welcome to Numinous. Work that explores not in the Bible angles alongside practical methods. This is not a channel for passive theory. You will be asked to test things. You will be asked to notice, to breathe, to measure results in your own life. If that sounds demanding, it is. Freedom costs attention, but the return on that investment is sovereignty. The ability to choose your direction instead of being chosen by it. Imagine a prison that does not require bars, guards, or walls. It only needs your attention to point in the wrong direction for long enough. The mind cage is not a room you are locked inside. It is a set of reflexes installed within you. Left unchecked, those reflexes make borrowed thoughts feel like your own. Turn old emotional signatures into today's decisions and replace direct knowing with secondhand narratives. The cage has 3 hinges. First, identification. You mistake passing mental weather for the sky itself. Anxious stops being a sensation and becomes an identity. Second, agitation. The system keeps you oscillating between craving and avoidance, because agitation consumes energy and distracted energy leaks. Third, amnesia. You forget that awareness can step back. The more you forget, the more the machine appears to be reality. You can observe the hinges in ordinary moments. A headline appears. Identification grabs. People like me must care. Agitation spikes, heart rate rises, and amnesia seals the lid. No space to notice the sequence. Minutes later, you are arguing with strangers in your head. The feed is running. The cage is architectural. It uses symbols, status marks, virtue badges, rituals, morning scroll, outrage checks, and architecture, notifications timed to boredom. It uses mirrors, images of lives you do not live, to trigger comparison and craving. It uses noise, a drip of novelty, to keep the nervous system too busy to feel itself. None of this is an accident. If attention is the world's most contested resource, anything that diverts it becomes profitable. This is not abstract philosophy. Watch how the body tightens before a thought appears, then the thought arrives to explain the tension. The order is reversed. State first, story second. That is the cage doing its work. State management that manufactures stories. Once you see that sequence even once, the door has already begun to open. Let's ground this with 3 everyday scenes. Commute. You open a news app. 10 minutes later, you are furious at people you will never meet. Energy spent, nothing changed. The cage profited. Kitchen. A small insecurity appears as you cook. Within seconds, you are comparing your life to a stranger's highlight reel. Appetite is now for images, not food. Night. You promise one last scroll at midnight. At 1:12, you surface, wired and empty. The alarm will be cruel. The loop will be fed again in the morning to fill the emptiness it created. The cage is elegant because it uses your best capacities against you. Imagination, memory, empathy. It counterfeits each one. Imagination becomes worry, memory becomes rumination, empathy becomes outrage performance. The counterfeit looks close enough that you spend energy on it. That is the business model. Now we name a fact you can verify. Attention follows the body, and the body follows breath. The cage knows this. It keeps your breath short and your posture collapsed. We will reverse that in section 6. Coming up next, the buried record that named this pattern long before algorithms did. In 1945, near the Egyptian village of Nag Hammadi, a sealed clay jar was opened and a library long thought lost surfaced. Among the papyrus codices were texts that describe a cosmology starkly different from the later, cleaned-up narratives. One of those writings, often called the Secret Book of John, sketches a drama in which a lesser maker, Demiurge, ignorant of the source, arranges a cosmos and installs rulers called Archons to administer the imitation. Other passages speak of Sophia, wisdom acting without permission, giving rise to a power that mistakes its reflection for the whole. The point of these stories is not to argue about mythic details or to replace one dogma with another. It is to point at a pattern. A world can be organized to keep consciousness forgetful while believing itself free. The Gnostics taught that a spark of the true source lives in every human, unreachable by the Archons, yet continually buried under suggestion. They warned that the apparatus imitates, distorts, and copies life the way a mirror copies a face. Convincing in outline, empty in substance. Why would such texts be hidden? Because they redirect authority from external rulebooks back to direct experience. If sovereignty lives in the act of seeing, intermediaries lose their role. Power, both political and spiritual, does not enjoy that reminder. Libraries burn, teachings are diluted, symbols are inverted. And yet the pattern survives in fragments and in practice. The manuscript slept in the desert until someone was ready to remember. You are hearing this now because, on some level, you are ready. One thread recounts how Sophia, wisdom, moves without consent of the fullness and an incomplete being emerges. A blinding force with the face of a lion and the coils of a serpent. Later called Yaldabaoth, ignorant of the source, It proclaims itself ultimate and organizes a copy of reality. To administer the copy, rulers, Archons, are set over cycles, stars, and structures. Numbers vary across texts. The point remains. The copy runs on order, repetition, and imitation. Read literally, the myth sounds alien. Read psychologically, it is familiar. A proud, partial power mistakes itself for the whole and arranges a world that confuses reflection with origin. The result is a universe where appearance outruns essence. If that description reminds you of highly produced timelines and spiritual branding with more shine than substance, it is because the same pattern is at work. The Gnostics do not leave us only with diagnosis. They teach that a living spark of the original source resides in each human, untouched by rulers. The task is remembrance. To wake up inside the copy, recognize it as a copy, and act from the spark. Up next, from myth to mechanics, how thought and emotion are steered. The mechanism does not need to seize your body. It only needs to steer what you take seriously. It does this by copying your inner voice. A whisper that sounds like you says, "You are late. You are failing. You must answer now." The body flashes a surge of fear, breath rises into the chest, and the loop tightens. Soon you are acting out the whisper as if it were your own decision. 3 levers are used again and again. Intrusions. Thoughts that enter without invitation but wear your accent, often starting with, "I should," or "what if." Amplifiers. Memories and images that pour gasoline on the intrusion so it feels urgent. For example, recalling the one time you were publicly wrong is proof you must reply instantly. Bindings. Bodily microtensions. Jaw, diaphragm, soles of the feet. That anchor the narrative in sensation so you believe it. Once bound, attention spins and the feed begins. Energy leaves awareness and flows into the loop. The machine eats. You can practice seeing this in real time. The next time a spike of emotion appears, do not hunt the story. Scan the body for the 3 bindings: jaw, belly, feet. Soften them by 5%. Then watch how the urgent thought loses pressure. When the body releases, the story loses its fuel. If you have ever scrolled long past the point where you meant to stop, you have felt the loop. If you have ever rehearsed an argument you will never have, you have felt it. If shame visits after a tiny mistake and will not leave, you have felt it. The Archons are not creative. They are persistent. They cannot originate truth. So they repeat patterns until you call the repetition me. Recognizing the copy is the beginning of freedom. A few common disguises to memorize. Synthetic urgency. The message insists, now or never. If a decision cannot survive one slow breath, it is the loop. Moral bait. It tells you that outrage equals virtue. Outrage burns hot and fast. Clarity burns steady. Personalization. A random event is presented as proof that you are cursed or chosen. Both keep you special. Both keep you stuck. When you can name the disguise, you do not have to wear it. Start to treat intrusive thoughts as weather reports, not orders. You can carry an umbrella without worshiping the clouds. Here is a 30-second drill. Jaw, belly, feet. Release the jaw as if saying, ah. Soften the lower belly by 5%. Press the feet gently into the ground for 2 seconds, then relax. Now watch the mind try to restart the program. Smile at it. Do not argue. A loop without your argument dies of neglect. Coming up soon, the outer theater. How the same pattern scales to culture and time. No control system survives by operating only inside one person. The same pattern scales outward. Whole cultures can be tuned to the frequencies of fear and distraction. then told the noise is progress. Cycles repeat with fresh costumes. Crisis, promise, outrage, relief, and then back again. Why does it seem that history forgets its lessons on schedule? Because what is profitable to the machine must recur. The theater has stages. On one stage, algorithms serve you exactly what keeps you slightly agitated. Not enough to flee, not enough to rest. On another, identities are sharpened into weapons, so neighbors act like sworn enemies over symbols they barely define. On a third, attention is sold back to you as entertainment, then harvested while you relax. The net effect is the same as the inner loop. Energy out, clarity down. The most elegant trap in that theater is the false awakening. Give seekers a glossy map that never arrives at the destination. Sell rituals without roots, slogans without practice, symbols turned inside out. Feed the hunger to feel special while keeping the attention pointed outward at teachers, teams, and trends. The result looks like movement, but ends in circles. Entire spiritual industries thrive on the hope that seeking is the same as seeing. It is not. The antidote is not cynicism. The antidote is discrimination, the felt sense of truth that comes only from contact with the inner spark. Any path, teacher, or technique that returns you to that spark is useful. Anything that keeps you outsourcing your seeing is part of the theater, however sacred the language. The test is simple. Do you finish clearer and quieter, or louder and hungrier? Another layer of the theater works on calendar time. Holidays and news cycles act like emotional metronomes. Everyone is invited to feel the same thing on schedule: grief, pride, fear, triumph. So the collective field becomes predictable and harvestable. There is nothing wrong with shared feeling. The issue is automation. Spiritual life is not immune. When a practice becomes a brand, the temptation to keep the customer slightly unfulfilled is irresistible. Promises inflate. Claims of lineage multiply. Everything glows except the practitioners. The final insult is the fast path. Pay here to skip the work. The Archons love the fast path because it keeps the seeker in the role of consumer. Our interest is not to attack traditions. Many lineages carry living transmission. Our interest is to recover criteria. A simple list helps. Does the practice make you more honest, more present, more kind, and less reactive over 90 days? If not, it is entertainment wearing sacred clothes. Put it down gently and continue. Next, the break. 6 steps that cut the feed. You cannot bargain with a loop. You end it by starving it. What follows is a simple protocol. It is not a belief. Try it and test the results. Save it, because when agitation hits, you will not remember steps unless they are close by. Step 1. Name the pattern. The moment agitation appears, label it out loud if you can. Intrusion. Amplifier. Binding. Naming moves it from identity to observation. If you prefer, touch the crown of the head very lightly as you name it. The physical cue makes the mind listen. Step 2. Reset the body. Sit upright. Place one hand on the heart, one on the lower belly. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4. Hold 2. Exhale for 6. Repeat 3 to 5 times. Let the shoulders drop on the exhale. On the last breath, sigh audibly. Breath leads state. State releases story. Step 3. Return attention. Feel the contact of the feet with the floor. Ask, what is actually here now? Name 3 sensations, 3 sounds, 1 visual detail. Attention reclaimed is energy not available to the loop. If you are in public, do it silently. The nervous system understands either way. Step 4. Cut the feed. Identify the conduit that was leaking. Doom scrolling, argument rehearsal, craving. Close the tab. Put the phone in another room. Step outside for 2 minutes. Drink a glass of water. Make the cut physical. If the loop restarts, cut again. 1,000 tiny refusals build a habit. Step 5. Remembrance. For 60 seconds, rest as the one who notices. No commentary. If thoughts appear, say internally, seen. The Gnostics called this direct knowing, gnosis. Not an idea, but contact. The point is not to feel special. The point is to touch the quiet that does not move when thought moves. Step 6. Night watch. Before sleep, write one line. Where did I feed the loop today, and where did I starve it? Growth loves measurement, so does freedom. Once a week, reread the 7 lines you have gathered. Notice the patterns. Adjust your day so the same doorway is not left open twice. Starvation list. Customize yours. 24-hour news fast each week. Born, phone sleeps outside the bedroom. Default to monochrome screen. Color is bait. Replace one doom loop app with a reading app pinned to the same spot. Keep a 1-song timer near your desk. If you must check a feed, do it for the length of 1 track, not an hour. Optional deepening. Observer practice. Sit for 5 minutes. On each inhale, silently say, noticing. On each exhale, noticed. If an image or thought appears, do nothing except mark it seen. Return to sensing. You are training the muscle of non-feeding. Remember, the goal is not sterility. The goal is sovereign choice. You will still use technology, still disagree, still act. The difference will be the place you act from. If the mind cage survives on your attention, then each reclaimed moment is structural damage to the whole apparatus. This is why the story has always been pushed to the edges. Once enough people remember, the economics of the loop fail. The Archons cannot touch the spark. They can only persuade you to ignore it. Refuse the persuasion, and the bars that looked solid turn out to be missed. In a moment, this video will end, and an algorithm will invite you toward 100 other things. Pause. Place a hand on your heart and feel a single breath travel the whole distance. That is you, prior to the noise. From that place, choose deliberately what to feed and what to starve. Share this with someone who is ready to remember. The loop shrinks each time a human turns back toward the spark. If you want this to be more than interesting language, run the protocol today. Once in the morning, once when you notice agitation, once before sleep. For more, not in the Bible perspectives and practical methods, subscribe to Numinous and ring the bell. The deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. You were never the feed. You are the flame the mechanism tried to imitate. Before you go, anchor one line in memory. Where attention goes, reality grows. Today, choose one spot to stop watering the weeds and one spot to water the roots. Drop one word in the comments: fear, distraction, craving, or doubt. And I'll reply with a 60-second practice for that word. Thank you for your attention. Guard it well. The machine prefers a world of sleepers. You are not one of them.